Hello everybody, this is Alex, also known as Solanus Dracone, and welcome back to my Pern Primer series. Last week, we discussed the author herself and the release history of the books. This week, we're getting into the actual subjects of the books. Today's episode is going to just gloss over the founding and colonization of Pern and what new challenges awaited them. So let's set the scene. The year is the far future. How far in the future? It isn't specified. But it's far enough in the future that humanity has spread out amongst the stars, settled new colonies, made meaningful contact with alien races, and have even gotten into a war with a particularly hostile group of aliens called the Nathi. Many residents of the galaxy, including humans, have psychic capabilities, and entire cultures are based around genetic manipulation and ecosystem growth. Faster-than-light travel has been discovered. This is a time of spacefaring and wonder, with the different people of the galaxy having united into a government known as the Federated Sentient Planets, or FSP. Almost none of that is relevant to the main story of the series. It's just the backdrop. After the Nathi War, a couple thousand humans decided that they were pretty much done with this technologically advanced civilization. Earth had become a polluted mess, and galactic politics really got on these people's nerves. So this group raised the money and pulled the strings and got the rights to their very own planet, a planet very poor in industrial-grade resources, making it worthless to the FSP, but one which was perfect for a more pastoral, agricultural, secular sort of life, not unlike Jeffersonian ideals. This group of humans wanted to completely cut all ties with humanity's past and just go rough it forever. Led by some rather big-named and well-experienced people who had made themselves highly respected during the Nathi Wars, these people and their families piled into 3 massive colony ships and struck out to forge their own destiny. It took 15 years to reach the new planet, named Pern by the survey team who discovered it, with most of the population of the ships being in cryosleep the whole time, but they made it. The colonists chose the southern continent of this planet as the place they were going to begin their new society, and in a relatively short time, they made an honest go of it. There were highly skilled biologists, geneticists, engineers, and anyone you can imagine you'd possibly need to just uproot a whole civilization and drop anchor somewhere else. They brought genetically enhanced seeds for crops, genetically enhanced embryos for livestock, and a fair bit of current-level Earth technology, in order to slightly terraform the planet to suit their needs a bit better. Naturally, they fully expected that one day their advanced tech would break down for lack of the resources to maintain or reproduce it, but they were just fine with it. The tech gave them the leg up to get a good, strong foothold. These people were prepared for anything, or so they thought. Prior to coming, the colonists all agreed to a charter, which was their paper of government. It outlined the rights every citizen of the New World had, and became their codex for how the society was to run. Among the many things the charter covered was the right to claim any amount of land that you and your family could hold. If you found a spot of land before anyone else did, and could prove that you were capable of working the land and providing for your family and such, you could have it. That land would belong to you and your family forever and ever, provided that you upheld the general moral values of taking care of your people and not being a general bad leader. Systems were set up for how grievances could be addressed, travel rights, the whole shebang. Charter assumed that every single person would generally do the right thing, and so was rather similar to the Lockean Proviso. But it was also somewhat idealistic, perhaps a bit too much so, as the idea of natural human greed didn't seem to be entirely accounted for. Still, as a basis for government, it seemed pretty good to them. So, 8 years in, the new colony world is doing great. The ships they came in on have been scrapped down to bare basic functionality, just to keep an eye on the space around Pern. Most of the shuttles they came down to the planet with had been scrapped. They fully intended to completely cut off all ties with the rest of humanity, which they couldn't possibly have known at the time was perhaps a bit of a mistake. It is at about this time that Thread started to fall. What is Thread? Well, one of the things that the survey team and the colonists had noticed was that the star around which Pern orbited, Ruckbat, had a funny little rogue planet with a very weird orbit. This orbit was frankly cometary in its nature, with a 250-year or so time frame. Most of the time, the rogue planet was out in the boonies of the solar system, piercing the Oort cloud which surrounded the whole thing, but for about 50 years of its orbit, it came in for a swing around Rukbat, and this was the problem time. After going through the Oort cloud, the wandering planet would drag some of the debris from the cloud with it. Some of this debris, when it passed by Pern, would fall to the surface. But these were no simple meteors, oh no they weren't. When it hit Pern's atmosphere, this debris, this matter encased in ice, would undergo a weird chemical reaction and be transformed into long strands of a highly corrosive and highly voracious basic life form, which, when it hit the surface, would devour all organic life it came in contact with, instantly. One strand of this thread, if it hit a field, would render the field completely infertile, killing all the plants, dissolving all animal life, and sucking the nutrients right out of the ground, and thread was just as bad for people. If it hit a person, that person's body would just simply be dissolved and absorbed in a bloody, horrific mess. And this stuff fell in storms, massive 6-hour waves of the stuff, which covered miles and miles of land. Needless to say, this was a problem. Naturally, this caught people by surprise, and a lot of people were killed, or their livelihoods destroyed, or both. It became emergency time, and so unfortunately the Jeffersonian ideal had to be put on hold and central government reinstated. There simply weren't enough people and not enough technology to properly deal with the new menace of thread. The Pern colony was in real danger of being completely wiped out, eradicated, erased from existence. The Pernies were resourceful people, however, and if they had enough time, they could have possibly made an honest-to-goodness proper setup to keep everyone safe and protected from thread, and allow this to at least be a surviving colony. So the majority decided that they would just stay here and deal with the situation on their own, goddammit, because firstly, they didn't want no stinking help from the FSP, and secondly, even if they did call out for help, it'd be like 50 years before anyone showed up at least, and that would be way too long to be of any help. Not everyone agreed with this, and some people, despite the wishes of the colony, did jury-rig a distress beacon and managed to launch it. Would you believe that didn't help anything? Now, the colonists did have some ways of dealing with thread. Using these still functional computers of their colony ships, they were able to find out just what the hell was going on and how long it would last. They found out that this wandering planet was the source of the thread, how long they could expect thread to last, and even build up a timetable of when and where it would arrive. They still had some flying sleds left from the inventory of tech that they brought over, as well as other building gadgetry including rock borers. They found out that thread could not penetrate stone or thick plastic. They found out that if thread fell in water, it would drown and become harmless. They also found out, most importantly, that thread could be burned as it fell in the air, and they could at the very least protect some of their agricultural interests. And suddenly, the strange dead spots that the original survey team 200 years earlier had noted made perfect sense. Because the colonists didn't plan for it, they knew their hover scooter thingies would not continue to hold up, and eventually they would be completely defenseless to protect their crops and livestock. Things looked pretty grim, so the colony leaders, in a desperate attempt to do something, went to their most talented geneticists and asked for help. And this actually took more time than I expected, so the subject of what happens next must happen in another video. I want to thank everybody for watching. Once again, I am Alex, also known as Solinus Dracone, and this has been my Pern Primer series, Part 2. Goodbye!